So something really beautiful to share with you all. And the only title we could come up with quickly to be able to post something was The New Plan for Awakening. In A Course in Miracles, there's this thing called God's Plan for Salvation. So it's kind of the same. Salvation is such a big word, though. It sounds so religious for some people, so I tend to say awakening. But salvation was used in tradition because it meant to be saved. And then that sounds really religious. So you try to paraphrase it again or reinterpret it again to mean to wake up, to be done with the games, you know? So to be saved from our delusions, our illusions, our belief that we're separate from God. So it all really does fit. So let me start with this. And some of these concepts might be similar to things I've shared before, but I really want to emphasize this because this is really, really kind of a message for humanity. And typically when I teach, guys, I don't say, you don't often hear me saying, God told me, because there's a lot of that, even in fundamental televangelists, and often it's not real. So I try not to get mixed in with that, so I just teach. So you don't often hear me say, the Lord wants me to tell you something. It's like, God, we've heard that so many times, and it wasn't even authentic. So I feel weird about, doing it. So, but this is one of those that I have to say it is a very important message. And so to start off, let's just think in terms of 3 groups of people. Those who are asleep, in this case I'm going to call it those who are asleep, those who think they're awake but they're not, and those who are awakening. Now, and I'm purposefully doing that kind of as a vertical because those who are more like truly awakening, which includes some that are fully awake, which is rare, but I think even if you're fully awake, I think it's amazing to say I'm awakening. Even if you're fully awake, it's more humble and it's more likely that you can feel fully awake, but just say I'm awakening. Because we're all in this together. It doesn't matter how awake you are, you're still here. So just be part of the awakening. If you're so awake, then ascend, go, but we need people that are still awakening so they can get it and talk to us, So there's these 3. Now, it's kind of interesting because the first group are still asleep. Those are the folks that aren't even interested in the path. They don't even know there's a path. What's interesting, though, is that all is still in God, so even they're on the path, they just don't know it. So that's the good news. Everybody's, if you really want to go all the way with it, there isn't even a path. Nobody ever even fell asleep. It's just a dream. We never really separated and are doing all the stuff that we think we're doing. But that's another story. In the illusion, there seems to be life. And that life path, the path of life, some people don't look like they're really working on themselves. But deep inside, unbeknownst to them sometimes, they're still on the path. Somehow, you can't not be on the path because everywhere you go, God is. So it might not be visible, apparent, but God is. So there we go. We can always say, yeah, there's those way down there. And it's true, they are sort of choosing to live in darkness, self-imposed darkness, because they're not aware that there's even a light. So it's kind of a bummer, right? Now, the second group, higher up vertically, you would say, well, clearly they're better off. Those are the people that I'm saying in this particular talk. I'm saying those are the ones that symbolize the people that think they're awakening, but they're not. Now, at least they're studying something. That's kind of cool. But what happens is they become very impressed with themselves. They're distracted with themselves and their idea. They're not talking about God above. They're talking about themselves. I'm a master at this. I'm a shamanic that, I'm a psychic. They have all kinds of labels and titles because they're so amazing. But what's happening to that second group is that they're tunneling sideways. And when they do, the light of God does not penetrate and hit them anymore. Even the people at the lowest level have the light of God piercing down to them. So the people at the lowest level are higher than the people that are impressed with themselves. Does that make sense? Because they've tunneled sideways. Now, the good news is, Spirit still knows how to punch holes through all the illusions and reach them. But it cannot do that if their eyes and minds are closed. Does that make sense? God finds ways to get the light to them, but their eyes are closed. Why? Because they're busy looking at themselves. They're self-impressed. Now, this is what religion does. The religions are included in the ones that have tunneled sideways into their own self-importance. Not all people in religion, I'm taking religions in general, but so too does this happen in the world of medicine. So too does this happen in philosophers. Philosophers can get an inspiration, historically or current philosophers, they can get an inspiration and then they start becoming impressed with their thoughts about that inspiration. Rather than recognizing the inspiration is from God and then using it to commune with God, they start becoming very impressed with their dialogues inside. What is life? After all, life is like a rock, sometimes difficult. And they just start talking. They don't begin and end it with God, so they're tunneling sideways. So just bear with me because there's a reason why I'm putting it all this way. And when these are called hypocrites in some ways, but these are the ones that Jesus said, you are blind guides. The ones that are not down here that we're trying to get to wake up someday, they're not the people that are awakening. They're the people that on the second level have found some light and made it about them. They studied something and said, I now studied that, and now I'm amazing at it. Let me tell you about it. Tunnel to sideways, And you're blind guides because you're living in darkness, so you're a blind guide. You don't even know the authenticity of God anymore because you're talking about yourself, coming from too much from yourself. Is that all making sense? All right. So that third group, counting upwards, clearly, they're a bit further on the path, obviously. They're people that are studying, yet they keep humility. See, that's the weird thing. The higher up you go, you think, well, if I'm getting better at this, it makes sense that I become more important. But really, the higher you get, the more humble you're supposed to be becoming. The higher you get, you think as a we more than an I, which is sort of contrary to human development, where we think you're supposed to individuate and learn how to become an individual. Yeah, only for a moment. But the individual has to then learn how to become the we, which is almost all the way home to where it becomes the divine I am. So there's this little self that's lost. It finds the I individuation, I am, like Descartes. I think, therefore I am. Wow, that's an awakening soul. Jesus says, actually, Descartes should have said, I think, therefore I am not. Because as soon as you think you can think, you're not thinking. As soon as you think there's a little you that's conscious, you have gone unconscious. So you go from being unconscious, not knowing an I, to knowing an I, but too often it becomes a selfish I, and you tunnel sideways into self-importance. But at some point, it's only through life that teaches us to be so humble, we say, I thought I was onto something. I thought I was important. I thought I. Wow, I get it. Into the 12-step program you go. Into humility you go. Into prayer, authenticity now. And that's when the light, boom, punctures through even the most crazy horizontal tunnels you might have made. Boom, the light just comes through. And that's why even people that are stuck at the bottom or stuck sideways can have transformative events, like awakenings. People that sometimes you think are hopeless in their selfishness going sideways or in their darkness they once lived in all the way at the bottom. But that moment of humility can turn it all around for anybody. The bummer is you have to have a reason to become humble. And some people are so in self-importance and control that there's no reason why they would want to give that up. If I have billions of dollars, if I'm a political figure or a leader of a big group, why would I ever have a reason to think about humility? Why would I go from running everything to dropping it a notch? Hey, I'm leading this nation, but I've been thinking, why don't we talk about this? You see, it's almost impossible for a soul to do that. The things that cause us to wake up are either A, the easy way, or B, the hard way. But the easy way comes from us just saying, this just makes sense. And most people don't learn that way. That's why there's people stuck in jobs or relationships. You have two ways out, the easy way or the hard way. The easy way is, having a peaceful life, more of a soul's purpose, that just makes sense. Wow, I think I'm going to follow that. Most people don't. Instead, they usually have to have everything fall apart, crash, hard way, right? Crash, and then, oh, Jesus, what? And then we call out to the Lord and whatever else you believe in. You get out your Buddhist beads, your cross, you got to play it safe and just go to any deity and out there, one of them might hear you. So it's a very convenient time of prayer. It's convenient prayer. But we don't have to learn the hard way. This is not a talk on that, but just a footnote on that. Remember, more and more I'm choosing, I being any of us, more and more I'm starting to just choose what makes sense. Instead of fighting it, and then having to choose it. Why do I need to do that? I'll just do it because it makes sense. Maybe I should go to the doctor and get a checkup. Well, not until I'm sick. See, we have to learn to go, it just makes sense. That's called the easy way. But humans typically don't learn the easy way. So there's something that's shifting on planet Earth, and there's this divine plan of awakening. Now, it's kind of interesting because this changed many years ago, hundreds and hundreds of years ago. It changed. But as I saw it recently, it's come to me recently, that change took place a long time ago, but now it's kicking in. And here's how it's different. This plan of salvation has actually always had these two parts, but the second part wasn't really apparent to people yet. So in the old days, we used to think of people as individuals waking up, almost like that row of three again. People waking up. And then what happens is some of them made it to the finish line. And you call them Buddha, or you call them ascended masters, or whatever. That was the original plan. God saying to the hearts and souls of humanity, do your best to become enlightened. How many people have you met that did it in this lifetime, completely got there? And let's pretend you can say 100, which is not going to be true. But let's pretend you can say 100. You've met a lot more than 100 people in this lifetime, meaning the odds are slim. So the old adage was, the way is narrow and only for the few. But that's changed. So I'll explain this. But the old adage was, you devote yourself to God. So people became monks, nuns, mystics, and even people following gurus, so that they could become like them and reach that other side, usually failing to get there. But the good news was somebody would get there. So it's like this, long march, and it's even more tragic than the Trail of Tears because almost nobody makes it. But we think of that as what the spiritual path is. And some people sense it's not possible in this lifetime for me to become totally enlightened. So that's partly why they start tunneling sideways, because they don't know where else to go. They know they're probably not going to actually achieve complete enlightenment, and they're also being self-centered. But we're on the spiritual path, and you guys, we're watching this show, we're reading books, we're doing workshops, and our lives are getting better, and that's what you're supposed to be doing. Don't get me wrong, that's what you're supposed to be doing. However, if you really think about it, based on your ratio of prayer, meditation, yoga, and whatever else you do, if you really sit down, are you going to reach the finish line at your rate? At the pace you're going? It's possible, but think about it. Most of us are going to go, no. Then why am I even doing the yoga? Why am I even doing the prayer? Because I'm just kind of hoping for the best. That's what's actually happening in our minds. Most of us subtly, subconsciously are thinking, I'm just crossing my fingers and hoping for the best. But if you really think about it, most of us don't actually believe we're going to reach total enlightenment in this lifetime. Because most of us have about 20 years to make it there. And is it going to happen? Which sounds depressing, I get that, but I'll take care of that in a second. So here's the change in the plan to salvation. So we used to think, okay, I got to be one of those, but I'm probably not going to be, so I'll just make the best of it. That's what we've done. We're just making the best of it. And yes, some of us will reach it, but really? Absolute unconditional love. Oh, well, you love it as a philosophical thought. Unconditional love. Can you achieve it? Can you achieve forgiving everything that's ever happened, including the universe for looking like it's a material thing and it's not? Can you really achieve total wellness, prosperity, consciousness? It would be like trying to download every book and every workshop all at once and then integrating it and applying it. Can we pull that off? Well, the old way was, if you're really that committed to being awakened, it'll likely happen, but not at the pace we're at, guys. Most of the people that achieve it went up into a mountain, sat in a cave, and just focused on God till they got to the finish line, and even most of them didn't make it. When you're still driving around, even if you think you're close to enlightenment, you come to Sedona and you have to deal with these roundabouts. And quickly you'll realize, okay, that's not happening. I thought I was enlightened. And so what I'm saying is when anything can still tick you off, Okay, so let's own it's not happening. But what I'm saying is then we drop into a depression, believe it or not. Some very severe depression, not even knowing why we're depressed. One of the reasons you're depressed is because you know something's wrong, that you're not going to make it, and that we're not going to make it. There is no politician that's going to change the world the way it actually has to be changed. None of that's going to happen the way we thought it's going to happen, the way people thought. It's not going to happen. The medical profession can come up with cures for things. They'll never cure everything. And if they did, people wouldn't die. And that would be great, except you'd have population explosion. Then all of a sudden there's no water, there's no food. There's always going to be stuff in this world as we know it. And it's not going to be a guy that's going to show up and fix it by walking into office. So these things just aren't going to happen the way we thought. So what has to happen is a major consciousness shift. And if we keep trying to make it home, subtly realizing we're not getting there quickly enough, I'm saying we drop into a depression as a race and as individuals, not even knowing that's why we're tired. You're tired maybe because your hormones this and your body that and fatigue this. I understand all that. But your body doesn't actually control you. The body's giving up because the mind's giving up. And the mind is giving up because it knows things you don't want to know. And that is, something's wrong. We're not making it. So, the new plan for salvation, which isn't new, it's the second part of the first plan. The first plan for salvation brought us what we call the Messiah. The Savior, Jesus, and the first coming of Christ. The second coming of Christ is this other part of the plan that's now kicking in. So what's happening now is we're all racing home, and some of us, one in every 100,000 or every million, made it across the finish line in the old days. And we just kept incarnating, thinking, well, I'm going to try that, knowing, well, it's not going to probably happen, and then becoming depressed and then reincarnating again once we die, usually depressed. And so what's happening now is Spirit saying, now part of what the second coming of Christ means is this. You can all keep racing for the finish line. And the good news about that is, the purpose of it is, God's saying, I still want you to focus on me, meaning your focus to get home, not like attention getting, but I want you to still focus on the light at the end of the tunnel. And one reason is I want you to be careful not to get distracted with sideways tunnels. Is that making sense? So plan one still works, but instead of it being the goal for us to reach the finish line, something's changed. And here's what it is. We're running to the finish line. We used to say, I'm almost there. And the angels are like, come on, you can do it. You're almost there. Pray a little more clarity, one more forgiveness, and boom, you're there. And we now have a new ascended master. Rare, but it would happen. And they're still saying, come on, you can do it, come on. But the change is, although their hearts of spirit and spirit beings are saying, come home, stay focused. Come on, keep focus on us. Keep coming this way, don't go sideways. That's still happening, but they're adding this. As we're getting close to the finish line, they're actually going, just like they don't see you. Because they're saying, we don't want you to focus on the Messiah on the other side of the finish line. We want you to focus on the Messiah in each other. We're going to not just call you home. We're going to say, hey, you're almost there, you're almost there. And just when you think things are going well, they're going to do this. It's almost like an abandonment. They're going to toss us walkie-talkies and say, start communicating with each other. And start listening to guidance. Meaning, we're going to give you instructions. So instead of just calling us home, they're telling us, we're going to give you instructions, not how to get to the finish line, but how to bring others to the finish line. It used to be, I'm going to get there, and then I might become a bodhisattva. If I ever get there, I might incarnate, I might not. I'll just be an ascended master. I'll hide out in heaven. Everything will be, whatever. You'll decide what to do after that because everything's peachy. But it's changed. And instead, they're saying, it's almost like they're saying, we have enough ascended masters now. Think about that. We don't want any more messiahs. We don't want any more ascended masters. Oh, but I'm almost there. Yeah, I know. Here's a walkie-talkie. We'll start listening for instructions. Turn it on, and we'll tell you what to do. What do you mean? Because I'm almost home. Yeah, I know, but we don't want you. We want you to start grabbing some other people that aren't as far along. And that is a realization I've had in bits here and there, but that was something that came full circle recently. And I realized, because I've seen this in bits and pieces here and there, because I was going, this is strange. I can feel it and see it. There's been a change vibrationally where I'm going, if I decided at the end of this life or even in this moment to get there, to just finish my journey and become one with spirit, I'm going, there's something that feels hollow about it. And it all started coming to me in pieces. But my point is, because what they're saying is, the old need, the achievement for enlightenment was great and necessary, and we still want you to focus on the light, but so that you don't get distracted, not because it's the only place you're going to go. Meaning, we want you to focus the light in each other. We want you to bring people home. We don't want you to just focus on the Messiah. We want you to become a Messiah. You mean when I get back and I'm ascended? No. While you're there, turn on your walkie-talkie. We're going to give you instructions. That's part of what A Course in Miracles was about. Because it doesn't tell you, do this, 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 and you're going to be enlightened. It actually is telling you how to bring more people home. I want you to see the Christ in others, not become the Christ, which you're becoming anyway, because the first half of the plan is still there. But I'm saying, when I said the angels kind of whistle and look away, it means they have to be careful, because we're so programmed with the I've got to get home, meaning a search for perfection, that we forgot that the tools, the opportunities are right around us. We're ignoring the people around us because we're almost home. And they're saying, okay, plan B. Turn on your walkie-talkie. Okay, I'll turn it on, but I'm just focused on more yoga, more breath work, more organic living, and I'm almost there. They're like, okay, whatever. Eat whatever you're going to eat. But while you're eating that, the person at the organic food store that's irritating you, we want you to affirm that in them is the light of God. Why? They're just annoying. What do you mean? As soon as I get out of this store and get home to my tranquil Red Rock backyard, everything will be fine. They're like, we're going to take the Red Rock and flip it over onto your head if you don't listen. We want you to look into each other's eyes. The ultimate intimate relationship has to be had with everyone. Not my special beloved. Everyone. With everyone. Isn't that amazing? We want you to look into the eyes of everyone. No, you don't have to go, and give them the romantic eye to eye. We're talking about the spiritual. Wow. Wow. What if part of the meaning to let thine eye be single doesn't just mean your third eye? Maybe it means let your eye in any moment be focused on that other single person perfectly in that moment. How can I see the light in you that God sees that I sometimes can't see? Why can't I see it? Well, your behaviors are... No. If God can see everyone's light, and that's all God can see, and you can't because of people's annoying behaviors, where's the problem? Well, obviously they're annoying behaviors. No, because God can see their light despite it, so I must be the one who hasn't yet gotten there. Well, that'll be all taken care of when I finish the race and get to the finish line. You're not going to get to the finish line. This is almost entirely, exclusively, no longer permitted for people to reach enlightenment. Think about that. They don't want any more individuals who wake up. A more efficient plan has kicked in. The second coming, where it's not one that gets it, but everyone. So how well are you doing this? We're not saying how well are you individually getting your awakening, because the new rule is how many people are you bringing home? Not as teachers at podiums, but in our ability to practice love and forgiveness. That's what it all comes down to. That's what these guides are now saying. They're on the walkie-talkies. And I know, man, it's hard to think, I'm that close to the light. Seriously? You want me to start dealing with people? I'm almost there. And they're saying, anybody that ever even reached here found a way to also love those people. And then you became focused on the ones who made it. Is that making sense? You focused on the few who made it. But the good news is, we feel, they're saying from the other side, we already see so much light in you that we feel confident that you can accomplish this, bringing other people home. Where it feels like, I was this close to being home, and you want me to deal with human stuff? People? I was this close. And they're saying the whole new dispensation is about you bringing those other people with you. Then why did other people get to make it? Well, because they did it sooner. So there was still a way, we still accepted individual rentals. Now we want only families, large families, groups. And I believe this is partly why I had started getting that inspiration to at some point buy a retreat, because things are changing. I think it's on our Edenshire website, a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh, who said, "Isn't it possible that the next Buddha is not an individual, but groups?" And that's one of the tags, the symptoms of what I'm describing here today. I've never heard anybody say this, not in these kinds of words, and certainly not, the way I say things, but that's because it's true. There's been a change. So what if this is true? What if what I'm saying is true? Everyone who's watching, listening should also pass this along. But everyone who's watching or listening in this room now or wherever they happen to be sits with it instead of going, that was a nice little talk that happened. See, that's minimizing it. If you really sit with it, you'd have to say to yourself, the whole thing that we've ever heard, keep growing and you'll go home. The whole thing we heard about, worshiping an individual who did make it home is all ending. Who's Michael to be saying that? You don't have to believe it. But if you do, we all sit and reevaluate and go, that's why I've been hearing words about others. Thich Nhat Hanh saying maybe it's about the new Buddha as a group and not an individual. Maybe that's putting together these things I've been sensing. Because everyone, if they sit and think about it, they'll realize I have felt almost like a group level of depression, like a global version of depression in this world. I can feel it if I tune into it. Why some people will take their lives because they sense it and they don't know what to do about it. Maybe this all starts to make sense and we realize, and it really is beautiful if you think of it. I love it. I mean, it's a little bit of a shock in some ways when I have these insights around this topic. At times I think I might have even thought, I'll get back to that later. Because it's, when you really sit with it, it starts changing everything. All of a sudden, it's like, I was racing towards God. And again, please hear me. That is not gone. The moving towards God commitment still has to be there, mainly so we don't get distracted sideways. So you have to do both. It's not one or the other. It's still focus on God. The change, though, is focus on God and catch the walkie-talkie that's been tossed to you. Okay? Before, it was only that single-mindedness, which is perfect. Now we're adding to, not replacing, the single-mindedness. Stay focused, and instead of, I'm going to get to the light, how can I pull the light into me here and shine it for anyone else? Being the one, being the Messiah. And instead of saying, look at me, I'm now the Messiah of my family. This will definitely be announced in the next family reunion, It's not like that grandiosity. It's more like, wow, to become a nice person, nicer. Not just to be nice because I'm spiritual and almost home, unlike the rest of you all. It's, I'm not getting there without any of you. See what I'm saying? So the focus, the task shifts. Instead of, I'm almost there, hi to you people at the second, and that lowest level and the second level, it's like, okay. I got to kind of relax and allow myself to drop back in a little bit and gather the sheep. And sheep is not meant in the condescending way that you're all just sheep like we hear. The sheep meaning I'm responsible for the other people in the world to come home. And we think we're not. Well, if you don't make it, come on. Now you're just one of the fundamentalists that say, I'm one of the 144,000 that are going home, and the rest of all humanity throughout time are pretty much up creek. And if they were on other planets, they definitely don't stand a chance, I mean, it's not how this works. It's all or nothing because God is the all. How can we go home and be part of the all without being all of us? So we're like having to realize this, I'm more depressed than I was before because of the weight of this. It immediately gets translated as work. For me, I used to just think I just needed to be spiritual myself. Now you're telling me I'm responsible for everybody else? Not in the ego sense, not where I have to force people to wake up. It just means more and more love and forgiveness practiced is taking you home. See what I'm saying? By example, and also by my inner intention. It is taking you home. I don't have to go and convert everybody. That would be work. It's more like, how can I see you all differently? And it's quite, to me, it's almost poetic when I tune into this concept. I was racing towards God. we can almost become hyper-focused on that and forgetting other things around us. But the opposite is also dangerous, meaning no focus and only caught up in the stuff around us. Now we're being asked balance. Stay focused and yet aware of your surroundings. When you see somebody who's, difficult, challenging, so obviously narcissistic and ego-based, you don't have to go and kiss their feet and do all the stuff their ego wants. But you can, in your own mind, say, that is not the real person. That's their ego personality. I am willing to see beyond their ego personality and see the light in them. Beloved Father, Mother, God, guide me and show me how to do that. Because if it's not happening, remember, I'm the one who needs to adjust my vision. So a little spiritual LASIK surgery going on, readjust my vision. Oh, I can see more clearly. And it's what happens. You go from blur to all of a sudden, wow, what happened? And you see a light in a person. That doesn't mean they come over to you and say, wait. Partner or child or whatever they are to you. They don't necessarily come over to you and say, wow, I have been such a narcissist. How ridiculous of me. I'm totally letting that go, and I would love to hear what you have to say about how I can find God. That's probably not going to happen. But what will happen is, despite the behavior, you're going to see a light, feel a light deep within them that causes you to go, that's what it does. It's not an external fix, although that sometimes comes because that's the miracle manifesting. But the first miracle is internal, not external. And the person you thought was hopeless, the president of the United States, the leader of a religion, some of that stuff's too twisted, medical associations, next door neighbors, all of them. It's not that you go and vote a new one in or get another this. It's not that. It's you do your internal work, and all of a sudden there's this feeling. Wow, the one I've been interacting with is not the real them. And what just happened is I realized there's actually a real them. When I realize there's a real them, I don't feel compelled to make them change or wish they would change. I feel only the confidence that it will happen. It's inevitable. It's like, how weird. I feel confidence in the people I felt the most hopelessness for. The people I wanted to stay angry at. And instead it's like, there is a light in you that's part of the light of God that is eternal, which means it is inevitable that the light in you is going to return to the greater light. Wow. And I was thinking you were hopeless, or I was thinking, here's what you need. And I don't even feel like you need anything. The light is already destined to its place. But what's going to happen to that narcissist now? The head's kicking back in. But I want that to change. I want them to speak different. I want them to do, and it's not just narcissists, anybody that you don't like the way they do things. If only starts to fall away. If it kicks back in, beware. Because that's when you're then losing your own Christ center again. Is that making sense? And all this time, this second part of the plan didn't kick in because people have been so weak about the willingness to see the light in each other. It was convenient to think, if I become spiritual, I get to ascend and you don't. That was just another way to be judgmental. Or, once I'm enlightened enough, I guess I'll probably forgive you. It doesn't work that way. My ability to reach enlightenment comes from my ability to forgive, not it'll happen as a secondary thing. Is that all making sense? All right. So we close with that idea. And just breathe for just a moment, if you don't mind. Breathe for just a moment. Before we go into a meditation, breathe and have your own, first drop away from the thinking, the lower mind, and let's drop in for a second just to, almost like the talk is still sharing insights, but it's not me necessarily, it's also you're having some yourself. You're having insights about this idea. What does it mean if I no longer have to race single-focused towards God? I'm still focused on God. But what does that mean? No longer as single-focused, meaning hyper-obsessed. What does it mean if I'm told I'm going to just receive a walkie-talkie in a package, open it, turn it on, and I will receive instructions? What does that mean? And gradually go into a place of closing your eyes with that intention. So that because you're one of the people with the walkie-talkies, if you're hearing this, watching this, you're likely one of them that's been on the path doing good work, whether you were right at the finish line or 100 yards from it or a mile from it, you're still close to it. But the change has been, you're not getting there, you're receiving a walkie-talkie. What does that do in your nervous system or your body? Stop running and sit. What does it do? It could make you feel negative feelings or positive. Whatever it is, just notice it. What does it mean? What does it mean if I'm not to focus on a Messiah but to become one? What if that's my part in God's plan for humanity's awakening? What if? Then what does that mean? Think about that. I'm here, in a way, living as though it's my last day, and yet living as though I'll be here forever. So while I'm here, to do good is right. It's time to share. Share the prosperity, the funds you have. Share the smile you have. Share your wisdom. Buy a book for someone so they can get the little bits of food that helped you wake up. No longer buy stuff maybe as mundane for gifts, holiday gifts, birthday gifts. Instead, let's just only bring light to people. Give people books that might make sense to them. Just the little bit that might help them. Don't try to kick the doors down too much, but be one that only shares those kinds of things. Pay the bill for somebody behind you in the checkout stand or in front of you. Smiles. Let somebody in when they're cutting in on the freeway or on the road. Just more and more giving. Why? Because I'm not getting out of here anytime soon like I had thought. I'm here until everyone goes home. Because we became spiritually selfish and self-centered. And now we realize our growth is going to come from how many people we affect positively. Ever more evident, not by the books we read, how many, not by the quantity of things we do, not by how many meditations or how organic your diet is. It's even at the organic stores. Help to pay someone's way. In the aisle, smile. Lighten someone's day. Just because they're at that particular kind of store doesn't mean there's no challenges in life. They're still waiting for someone to say, there is hope. How can I help? Think about that. If you're still not sure what all this means, try to imagine, what if it translates simply as, how can I have ended this day knowing that in some way I manifested hope where there was hopelessness? How can I end this day believing that in some way at least one person was made to feel as though they have value? And that has many forms. Sometimes it's taking a few extra minutes to talk to them when They know and you know you were kind of rushed. But they feel valued because you gave them your time. And, guys, we know on planet Earth, you can give some people all your time and it's not going to be enough because they see themselves as such a void, like a black hole that cannot be filled. Still do your part and stay clear and walk away. They get it, they don't. That's not your goal. That's not your role. Do your part. Drop a smile and walk away. Drop seeds and cover them, water them, feed them, and walk away. Don't try to babysit each person's awakening. Only do your part to show them why it's a good thing that they do awaken. When they see your happiness, when they see even when you go through challenges, that somehow you don't go through them as often as others. Why? Or when you go through them, you seem to bounce back better than others. Why? Or when you're going through them, you still maintain a certain amount of clarity. How did you do that? That's what you're looking for. Making people that are at the bottom of this chart list or the ones that tunneled sideways, you want to make them get, in a positive way, confused. You want to make them go, how did you do that? That kind of confusion. You want to make them go, I've got to question things. I thought that when things aren't going well, we're all just supposed to be upset, but you're not. I'm wondering how you're doing that. That's how you want to leave them. Questioning their reality. Questioning the power that their world seemed like it had. And it doesn't. That gives them hope and it makes them feel of value. Another minute with that on your own quietly and just explore it. You can explore the ideas that I just shared, or you might also just silence your mind and then almost meditate on the concept that I shared, which is there's a new dispensation. Part 2 to the plan of humanity's awakening is happening, and guess what? You're actually assigned as part of that. Sit with it and see what that looks like, feels like, and you might even receive your own insights around it. The last few breaths, just drawing that in and integrating it. Integrating it with an attitude like, wow. And I got it. Even if your head tells you you didn't, just close with a breath or two of, wow, I got it. And then it'll continue to download, maybe information, maybe feelings. But we're then in the zone. And a last breath or two, as I said, and gradually come back to the room. Gradually stretch out and integrate. I pray today made good sense. I do. To me, it's an amazing thing to imagine. So many people in the spiritual community, New Age community, they talk about the masters and ascended masters, and that's good. But what we don't realize is they're talking about us. They're doing their part, but we're sitting here like we're nothing, praising them. And they're going, man, you don't get it, do you? You're the ones in the trenches. We can make certain changes from here, but there are changes we cannot make from this level that we're at. These high levels of dimensionality. We can hold space. We can send vibrations of love. But if you don't apply it, it's worthless. You're the ones in the trenches. We're not bringing people home in masses. That wasn't the full plan. The messengers gave messages to the masses, but guess what? The masses didn't wake up. See? And so, you guys that are part of the masses are going to bring the masses home. Wait, what? Us? Yes, the masters are saying. But you, Jesus, Buddha, Jesus, the master of masters, and then all the masters. Whether it's, you think of it as Buddha or Kutumi, DK, all these different beings, Saint Germain, Archangel Michael, and they're saying, we're holding space for you. Part 2 is, you guys are going to bring the masses up. I can't even find my car keys. What do you mean I'm going to bring humanity home? And they're saying, yeah, it is kind of funny, isn't it? So I guess you're going to need to start imagining that you're not just the person that can't find your car keys. You're going to have to start thinking a little more humbly but highly of yourself. You're part of God's plan for salvation. So I think it's kind of cool. And yet, there's still people on earth that go, life is about standing in a stream fishing. Isn't that wonderful? Or going out and camping in nature. I hear people do that all the time. That's what it's all about. Life is all about collecting junk. Like, I'm one of America's nitpickers, I look for junk to collect because that's what life's all about. I'm going to write a book one day about shoes. And some people think that's having kids, achieving great status at work. This is what people actually think. It's about, it's about having grandchildren. No, it isn't. It's only about, we used to think it was only about finding God, which is right. That's half of it. And bringing others home now is the other half of the story. That's it. We're only here. Focus on God, bring others home. Yeah, still fish and do other things. But do not think that's what life is all about. Because it's not even happening. You're dreaming that you're fishing. Why make the dream the goal? It's just a dream. It's a hallucination. It's called a hologram. It's not even really happening. Let it go. Staying young and fit. No. If that happens, good. That's great. That's not your goal. Are you bringing people home? So you like to be fit? Great. How many people at the gym have you helped today? Not how good did you look, but how many of them did you plant seeds? I don't mean preach. Remember that. I mean, as an example, how many did you make a difference in their lives? So that's my take on it. And I've said, we're starting a new year, and I think this is part of it. Sharing and starting the year. It's kind of an interesting thing because I at first thought I really need to sit here and talk about a little bit more closure because people were asking. And I can say it in a sentence and still might address it in the near future. The old year, the old life, the old lifestyles in us have to die. That's part of our walk home. The old ways have to die, including our limiting opinions and judgments and all. Everything of the past has to die so we can be born again into a new life. That's all still true. But that also means, and I said at the end of the year, watch, lots of deaths. And we're seeing masses of people going through health crisis, whether they physically die or not. Major endings in what they thought was their health changed, and they have certain illness or endings of jobs or whatever it happens to be. A lot of people with very challenging and tragic stories are sending in their messages online when we're sitting here and they're posting things. Lots of stuff going on. All I'm going to say, though, is don't be surprised. The more you learn to get in the zone, the more things happen with the seasons. Meaning the end of the year meant a lot of endings. Why act surprised? Jesus says, isn't it weird how you fishermen, you know how to read certain things about fishing, about the water. You know when the water's turbulent, it means something. You know when the sun looks a certain color, it means something. How is it that you think you know so much about the world and you know nothing about spirit? How did you miss that? How did you become proud to know one tree from another and yet you don't know one feeling or mood from another, where it came from? How is it you can be so proud to say, there's a storm coming. I'm great at predicting the weather. The weather's coming from the north, the clouds are and it's going to rain tomorrow. How can you be proud about that and yet you don't know when spiritual enlightenment is coming? People went sideways too often. Stop, recognize, I was distracted. Even if it's my children. Oh no, but that's not a distraction. Everything is a distraction other than my awakening. Well, doesn't that include my children? My awakening. Get yourself together and at the same time bring it to others, to everyone. Not hyper-focused on just one, to everyone. You can still have a partner and a child or two or three, but it changes how you look at them. They're not there for you to fix, they're not there for you to control, and they're not there to control you. They're just beings. They channeled through you, whether you came through your parents or children came through you. They're in your life because that was the karmic connection. Do you want to be done with karma? Sure. Then bid farewell to the genetic connections. If you become hyper-focused on your children or your parents or anything else, your religion or anything else, you remain actually burdened by it. Freedom also means saying goodbye to these things. You don't have to, now I'm going to go home and call my kids and say, listen, spiritual talks that I had to say goodbye to you, that'll just traumatize them. Maybe not. But what I'm saying is, I'm not burdened by it. I don't have to fix that. You don't owe your parents anything. You came through them karmically. That was dead enough. Goodbye to the old and then love them from a new level. Love them as God loves them. It's actually more love than you were giving them when you thought you did so dutifully. All of a sudden, I got it. I'm to love everyone. I still choose this person as a partner or that person as a business associate. You can still do that. But the intention is to further love everyone as God loves them. Okay? All right. Thank you.